Hey, James here, and in this quick video, I'm going to show you a simple thing you can do when you begin your stories that are going to make them more powerful and more visually impactful or emotionally impactful. That's really what I mean, more emotionally impactful. Now, of course, a lot has been said about stories, but so much of the story is in how you start. Now, one time I heard a professional speaker and he was teaching people on how to speak in public. And so I was listening to him and he was talking about story and how he said people stuff their stories too much with too many things and too many words. And so he was all about brevity, and he gave some examples of how to cut the story right down to its bare bones so that you could keep it moving. But the only problem was it's not correct. There's a time for brevity for sure, but it all depends on the context. But since we talk about in the context of sales and influence, like how to influence, how to lead, how to impact people with stories, then you want to make sure there's proper setup with your story. And we do that. Certainly words are going to be important, but also our cadence as well, and how we speak. So I want to give you an example. I want to give you an example of something that's like got ultra brevity, and then one that's richer in language. Now, this would be from, if you were speaking from stage or on a video, not just any story, but usually a significant story, right? Yeah, like I've said before, we have major stories and minor stories in any presentation. So this would be more for the major story in terms of how you get it started. So let me go ahead and kick up some slides here and show you what I mean. So let's compare these two. Hey, I was driving down the freeway, minding my own business, when this truck cuts into my lane. Right? So we've got some key story elements there. We got a setting. What I'm doing, I'm driving down the freeway, minding my own business. When, that's the inciting incident, right? Here's where everything changes. When this truck cuts into my lane. So absolutely, you could start a story like that. But I want you to compare that now with this. When you're lying upside down in your car and your mouth is full of glass from the windshield, you don't even hear the horn blaring. I'll never forget, because it was a Friday morning and I'm driving my Jeep along the 95 freeway. The sun's shining, the smell of fall was in the air, and I was listening to Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons when suddenly, out of nowhere, this massive 18-wheeler cuts right into my lane. Okay, so obviously there's a big difference between those two, and let's walk through that. By the way, the first one only takes about, maybe 4 seconds to say, and the other one is going to be 18, 19, maybe 20 seconds. But I'm telling you, those extra seconds for setting up a story are worth it. So let's walk through this and look at this. So what we did is we started our story here with a much more powerful hook, right? We took people ahead in time. That's a technique that we can use sometimes. You take people into the story, and you mention this. It's like a moment of highest tension almost, something that paints the picture like, oh, it gives the story a destination. You see movies do this from time to time. They'll start in this intense action, and then they jump back, and they're like 2 weeks earlier. They use the same technique. But anyways, this is a powerful hook to pull people into the story, and it opens a loop because people are like, oh my goodness, obviously they know you were in a car accident, right? So it's like, yeah, you're giving the thing of the story away, but that's okay. Because what we're doing is we're pulling people into the story. And it's very visual. Like lying upside down in my car, my mouth is full of glass from the windshield, the horn is blaring. That's a terrible visual, but it's a powerful visual. All right, next one. We're engaging more sensory receptors in the brain when we give at least a little bit of details. Friday morning, Jeep, 95 freeway. Right, so those are a few key things. We didn't have to say Friday morning, but Friday morning, my Jeep, there's an immediate picture there, the 95 freeway, and then there's a couple others here. Sun was shining, smell of fall was in the air, and I was listening to Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons. Also, my music choice says something about me, and that bonds me with like-minded people. Now, you're going to know your avatar, right? So you're going to tell it in a way, you're not going to lie what music you're listening to, but you're going to tell what music that you were listening to, and it's probably something that your avatar would listen to, right? If they're like you. But the whole point is this creates a rich image for the brain for somebody. Now, speaking is different than writing. In writing, we might expand on this a little bit more. And I know some people in writing, they'll talk about like brevity and, again, cutting out words that don't matter. But we're speaking here. And so we can throw in some words that help engage the brain, right? So what we did was we engaged sight, we engaged smell, we engaged auditory cortex, and these things actually fire in the brain when that happens. Now, you don't have to do all the senses for sure. Then let's look on here. We have our inciting incident when suddenly, right? Also, by the word suddenly cues drama. It's not just, then a truck swerved into my lane. It's like suddenly, out of nowhere, and this massive 18-wheeler cuts right into my lane. Now, if you were writing a book, then, we're looking for more brevity, and so we're going to probably take out the word massive. You don't need to say massive in front of 18-wheeler, right? So we're trying to clean up our writing, but this isn't writing, this is speaking. So it's easy for me to say, hey, out of nowhere, this massive 18-wheeler, right? Because I can put emphasis on different words like massive, suddenly, massive, cuts right into my lane. So the entire thing ends up being a very powerful way to begin a story. Now again, would we tell this much detail on a minor story? No, but on a major story. So a major story is something you're going to use whether you're trying to sell something or really influence someone or teach shift some beliefs inside people, or you're beginning your speech if you're giving a presentation. And if you started a speech like this, that would be very powerful. So let's go back and see this in action. Let's go compare these two again. You get up on stage and you say, hey, so I was driving down the freeway, minding my own business, when this truck cuts into my lane. It's almost just too brief. It's so fast that people's brains are like, wait, what? They're trying to catch up. But let's imagine now we're on stage. We just get up, they've introduced you, or the video has just started, and you basically start by saying, when you're lying upside down in your car and your mouth is full of glass from the windshield, you don't even hear the horn blaring. I'm going to pause for a moment. I want to let people take in that image. I'll never forget it because it was a Friday morning. I was driving my Jeep down the 995 freeway. The sun was shining. The smell of fall was in the air. And I was listening to Whatever It Takes by Imagine Dragons, when suddenly, out of nowhere, this massive 18-wheeler cuts right into my lane. I'm telling you, if you got up and started a presentation like that, you've got everyone. People are off their phones. They've closed their books, and now they're listening. And that's what we want. We want people listening because they want to know what in the world happened, right? So anyways, that's just a technique for how you can begin stories. These are major stories. Is by adding in some of these elements, right? Opening hooks, using sensory imagery to pull in the brain. Obviously, we have an inciting incident and certain words that are going to be descriptors of the nouns that we are describing. Okay, excellent. Go ahead, and the next story you tell, here's how you can do this with practice, by the way. When you get home at dinner tonight, tell your family a story, or if you live alone, next time you're with one of your friends, tell one of your friends a story, but try to just have some fun with it. Try to change it up, and don't make this part too long because you need it short enough to hold people, but rich enough that you're going to pull them in. All right? Yeah, go ahead and practice that. All right, see ya.